24 mils on the weekend, but then we got 17 on about Wednesday last week too.
Yeah.
So it's it's been great.
That's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It has.
Up for the winter.
Yeah, no, we're very lucky. Yeah, that's for sure.
And Melissa, how did you go? How you been? Did you get quite a bit of rain?
Yeah, we've been really good. About 50, I think, all up, something like that. 47. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
And it was sort of kind of damp before that anyway. So we're calling a northern break, which is a rare thing.
Yeah. Yeah, great. All right. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll get started. So welcome everyone. I don't think I need to do any major introductions. Everybody is aware of the project.
Yes,
what we're doing.
I apologise for my fellas aren't here today because we're AIing and they just need to be down this morning. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, all good. And I might just quickly introduce Nikki, because Nikki, some of you might not know who Nikki is. So on the larger project that we're doing, we've got we're doing this statewide. We're putting these sites in across the state, and I'm just wondering, do you know where that noise is coming from? I'm wondering whether someone might need to mute.
Maybe it's me. Try.
Yeah. Great, that's it. So we've got the statewide project. We're already making progress on sites in the Coal Valley. We've put sites in the northeast and Flinders. We had some events a few weeks ago, which went really well. And we are putting sites in the Derwent Valley now, and we're having actually a workshop tomorrow. So things are expanding across the state. And as part of that, what we're trying to do is get a bit more of an understanding of what strategies people are using currently, what they might use Farming Forecaster for, and what decisions might they be making with Farming Forecaster. So over time, we will be monitoring that. So Nikki from TIA, and she will be helping us sort of get a bit more of an understanding from people about what's going on. So I'll just sort of introduce her, and everybody else I think knows each other. So what I'll do is Phil is going to do a bit of an outlook for us. So I'll hand over to Phil, and I think I need to share my screen with him so that he can run through that.
Tim.
Yes.
Do you want to just mention the number of sites we've put in the last,
Of course.
And who's put in possibly a weather station, that kind of stuff, just so Melissa and Henry sort of know other sites that are,
Yeah, of course. So far we had a bit of a focus on the northeast and Flinders. So in the northeast we have 3 sites. So we've got Kananga, the Vignals. We've got the Headlands, a site which is sort of west of Bridport, and we've got West Point, or West Wyamby, as it might be known, which is Stephen Crease's property. So there's 3 sites there. On Flinders, we've actually got 4 sites. So one of the hosts is actually funding a large portion of the site themselves. So we've got quite a nice spread of sites there.
And he's putting a weather station in.
Yeah, and this guy is putting in a weather station. So that's Dave Bellinger. And then we've got the Andersons, Scott and Anna Anderson got a site. We've also got a site at help me out here. I'm just forgetting the names. Sorry,
Mark and Felicity Richards.
Mark and Felicity Richards, which is the name of the property is Dingira, and then we've got another site at the Burke's place at Happy Valley. So quite a nice spread there. In the Coal Valley, so we've just got 3 sites established. So we've got a site at Stockdale up the top of the valley at Colebrook. We've got another site down at Richmond at Daisy Banks. And then we've got one to the west in Brighton, which is the Thompsons' place, Strathallan. So it's quite a nice still spread of sites there. The Derwent, we're just in discussions with people. So there's a few people that are interested. We've definitely got Charles and Jamie Downey's are very, very interested. So they're going to have sites. In fact, we've already started building them. And then we've got Rob Patton is going to have a site near Tor Hill at his place at Kaywood. And then we're in discussions with other people, but we would like to set up at least 2 or 3 other sites in the Derwent. So that's really good. Obviously, you know that that we've got now a site at Brockley Estate. So that's 5 sites in the East Coast. And then in the Fingal, we've actually got a site at Royal George now as well. So we've got 4 sites there. So that's going really well. We're looking at the Midlands next as well. So there'll be a few more sites going on in the Southern and Northern Midlands, which is exciting. So as we speak, there are at least 10 of those sites I've discussed will be going up on the website very shortly. And then the rest of those sites will be going up in a sort of in the next few months. Yeah. So there you go.
Can I just say, well done. I turned my back for 5 minutes in order to lose my hair. But anyway, this is incredible. I looked on it only just last week, and to see the spread is just amazing. It's brilliant. Great work to everyone who's been onto it.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, and also just to let you guys know that we've got a technical working group for this bigger project, and one of the members of that technical working group is sorry, I just had a real mind blank this morning. Can you put yourself on mute, Henry? Sorry, I just thought I'd say that we've basically been invited to present at Red Meat Updates. So we'll be talking the Red Meat Updates in June, July, and yeah, so that's really positive. Sorry, can you remind me, Peter Pinion, who I've just had a mind blank. Jason Lynch. Sorry, I know Jason but quite well, but I've had a complete mind blank this morning. So Jason, he's on a technical working group, and he's a bit of a champion for the project, and he sort of put in a word that Farming Forecaster will be a good thing to discuss at the next Red Meat Updates. So we'll be talking at those. I just thought I'd let you know that. I better hand over to Phil now. I'm going to share the presentation. So can everybody see? Hang on. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Phil?
Keep moving through, Tim.
Yes.
Next slide.
Next slide. Over to you, Phil.
Rightio. Good morning, one and all. Well, what a difference a few days makes, because I'd started preparing this presentation last Thursday or Friday, and what I'm going to show you this morning is radically different of what I'd started preparing last week due to the event over the weekend, which is great news. I thought we'd just start off with looking at the overview of the sites and what the moisture is. So these are screenshots I took off the site last night, so they're current, and I'm sure Melissa and Havana was on, she'd say that their button a week ago was red and it's now sitting at brown with 47 and 48%, so about half the available soil moisture sitting there, and the 2 northern sites are green, so that's an enormous change around. I think one thing that Tim didn't mention, the virtual sites, you can see 3 of them over in the Midlands, which are the squares. They've now also had probes put in, so all those initial sites that were there last year with no probes have now got probes come in. So not only has the number of sites increased, but there's probes at all of them. So we're going to get a better picture across the state in terms of soil moisture. Next one, please, Tim. And now I've just picked up the ones further north, the Fingal Valley. There's still one site that's glaringly red, and that's the one at the western end of the Fingal Valley. I just think it's important when you go onto the site, you look at all the sites around you, because that's giving you a trend of what's going on. Next one, please. Now, this is some work that I did for the Coal Valley, and the Coal Valley was no difference that we presented yesterday. So I'd done my, so these are sites that I've just developed. So part of that first meeting is to get, show the producers what the model's saying and get agreement from them that the model is doing a robust job at their locality. So this is the Daisy Bank site. And if you focus on the graph on the right-hand side, now I can't do the fancy colouring shading you see when you're on the proper Farming Forecaster site. So the dotted lines are the historical values. So if I try to colour that mentally, between the red and the brown dotted line is what is red on Farming Forecaster. Between the brown and black dotted line is what is brown, and above the black dotted line is what's green. So that gives you an idea. And obviously the coloured forecast lines of what you've seen before. So that was the result of the work I did last Friday for Daisy Banks. Then on Saturday, they got 14 mils of rain. So I redid that work. So the one on the left is exactly the same site. The historical value is exactly the same, but just look at what's happened to the solid forecast lines with 14 mils of rain. It's made a huge difference to what that outlook would be. So now some of you, as I heard on the East Coast, have had more rain. So if I was put up your forecasts as they sat last week, they're radically different today than what we've seen. And that was really the screen you're looking at now. Really was well received by the producers, because they just showed them how critical that 14 mils was. Just a really important point. And this site at Daisy Banks had only had 78 mils rain for the year up until that 14 mils. Next one, please, Tim.
Sorry, did Henry, did you ask a question? Because I think you were on mute. Were you asking a question, Phil? Oh, okay. No problem.
Rightio. I know Marek's on board, and I'm going to get him to comment about this. This is the Kelvin site, and what I want you to focus on now is on the left-hand side is the moisture probe. So, 62% at 10, 20 and 30 have got nothing, 40 we've got 33, and at 50 and 60 we've got 84, 100%. So I'll hand over to Marek to discuss what's going on there.
Yeah, cheers, Phil. Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is just a beautiful example of some of the challenging soils that we're dealing with on the East Coast. Their vertic nature and the properties of the cracking properties that they have, and Kelvin's, along with Grindstone Bay and most of the soils up through the East Coast, have this kind of properties, that the cracking. And so when everyone thinks about how soil feels, I think it feels from the top uniformly, from the top to the bottom. But this is a beautiful visualization, or a beautiful visual here to show that in this case we're getting it filling from the top, from the bottom up. And I'm just looking. Can I share my screen quickly? Is that all right?
If you can, go for it. But we've had trouble sharing screens, so I don't know how.
No, I think Tim's monopolised it, so that's all right. But yeah, it's just so we could say there's. I'm just looking at the data here, and I'll just try and relay it. So in March we had a nice rainfall, and that pretty much bypassed 10 to 60 and started filling up 70 and 80 centimetres. Then we had another rainfall around the 28th of March, again bypassed a lot of that, and then it started actually filling up the 80, 70, and then it started filling up 60. And then the last rainfall that we had has got 70 full, 60 is pretty full, and it really topped up that 50 centimetres. But what we've got here on the Farming Forecaster dashboard is just beautifully illustrates in a simplified form how this soil is going to behave. So as we come, hopefully this autumn break keeps extending, and then once we come into winter, we'll see 50 will hit 100, and you'll see 40 will slowly start ticking itself up. 20 and 30 will start filling themselves up, and then yeah, we'll really see that that increase from the bottom to the top, and we'll see that again. I was just looking at both Grindstone Bay and Milton as well, and they're doing pretty similar things. So these are the way we're expecting this soil to refill, and this will be, and so as a gauge to see how well you're going to, and so what you want to see is essentially from the bottom to the top all the way up, slowly getting up to 100 as we come into spring. That's what we want to be seeing. If it was a nice limey sandy lime or a nice lime, we would be seeing the opposite. We'll be seeing those 10, 20, 30s, they'd be getting green, and then we'll be slowly seeing the one underneath crank its way up. Just an interesting fun fact. The reason why the 60s, the 10 centimeters sitting around that 60, because it's a sandy, it's a limier soil. So that the properties there is it holds onto the water a lot better because of the porosity of that. So that's always going to sit there. But as soon as we get into the clay, which starts, as you can see, starts at 20. It starts, yeah, all that theory goes out the window, and we start filling from the bottom. So yeah, Phil showed this yesterday, and I thought that's fantastic. Really good visualization.
So Marek, just looking at that, if there's no more rain, say for the next month or so, yep, the top level will drop, but a lot of that moisture would filter down to the 40, 50, and 60, and keep topping it up.
If there's no rain, no, not if there's no rain. So you'll see that 10 centimeters will dry out pretty quick, smart, mainly because that's where when there's moisture available in the top 20 centimeters, the plant will suck that out pretty quick, smart, because that's where majority of the root zone is. Plus you also got transpiration, so ETO is having an effect. So not just plant uptake, but also that's where you get a evaporation coming up. But so what you'd get
level, the top 62%, is not going to fill. It's not going to fill that 40 to 60 level.
No, because that's at field capacity. Right. So that was not even at field capacity. So water won't go to the next layer down unless it's reached saturation. That's when water comes through, or it's found a path of preferential flow, which in this case is a crack, which shoots it straight down to that 50, 60 centimeters. So what we saw in early to mid-March, we got a rainfall event that topped up the 70 centimeters a bit. And as soon as that rainfall stopped, the plant started sucking that moisture out at 70 centimeters. So it was taking that moisture up straight away. The moisture was there available. It's easiest for us to access. At no stage has it drawn moisture past 90 centimeters. So the moisture's there. There's active roots. As soon as it's available, it takes it and go. If it was a 10 centimeters, we'd just be taking it at the same time. And it's shown it beautifully. Like this graph here I'm looking at now, it's a great, it's a great demonstration of what we're dealing with. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we just see more of what we've had the last fortnight in terms of filling our soils up, and then those cracks they will shrink, so the soil will swell and they'll fill the cracks in, and then your soil will behave like normal until we come back into late spring, early summer, and start drying that subsoil moisture up again, that clay. So yeah.
Thanks, Marek. It's just the beauty about this data over time is you'll just learn characteristics about your soil which you mightn't have known before. And that's just a great visual example, so I wanted to pick that up. It's just interesting if you look at the arrows next to the box about what's happened to soil moisture compared to 7 days, 30 days or a year ago. If I asked you before this rain event, did you think where you thought your soil, not before the event, but now, do you think your soils are holding 34% moisture than they were this time last year? Well, they are. And it's interesting. I had a meeting in the Gas District the other week, and I asked 10 producers where they thought their soil moisture was compared to 12 months ago. And they all said categorically it was drier. And when we went on and looked at the relative probe sites on 4 of the 5 places where you had more moisture in the soil than last year, and there was only 1 site. So it's interesting what our perception is and what reality is. So this is a beauty. It brings us back to reality. I'll go into the pasture forecast a bit in a minute, but if I just, next slide, please, Tim. So this is, I've just gone down, I've hit the more probe, big blue, more probe detail, and it's the graphic picture of the last 12 months. But you'll notice up the top, compared to year, in there's a little drop-down box, and normally it's just got none, so it just shows you the current slide, but I've hit previous year. Next slide, please, Tim. So it's jammed up a bit. The top bit, which is cut off, is the current. The bottom one is what things were like 12 months ago. And that's why you'll see you had a good rainfall event in March last year. And you grew grass certainly through March. You didn't grow anywhere near the grass this March, but this rainfall event, as of today, puts you in a better spot. Now, if you look at the very end, left-hand end of the top graph, you'll see last year it was late April, you got a big rainfall event that kicked you off. So, you know, you're really, from a soil moisture point of view, in a similar position to where you were this time last year, and think about how things progress from there. Next slide, please. Rightio, so this is back set on Kelvin and just slowing the blowing up pasture forecast. Now, you'll notice the black line is sitting on the bottom. Now, we've always known that within grass grow, its weakness is the autumn break. And the problem there is in nature, the plants break their dormancy and come away quicker than what science says they do. So as I've been going around the state, when I was down here the other week and again the last couple of days, farming forecast is most likely 200 to 300 kilos of green feed below what reality is. And that's something we're trying to work on to get that tidied up. So at Kelvin, and if I went out there, I'd expect to see some green in the paddock, more green in the paddock than what that black line's indicating. And if you look up on the top right-hand side, it's telling us we've got a growth rate of 15. So there is growth occurring, we're just not seeing it. Now, remember, what this graph is showing you is not a paddock that's shut up. It's a paddock with stock in it at the stocking rate we set the operation up with. But the limitation of that dormancy issue in grass grow is in the forecast ones, and it's also in the historical values. So to some degree, we've minimised it. That's something we'd like to get rid of. But if we, again, how do you always look at the forecast? You compare the coloured line against its historical value, and the yellow line, which is the 50%, the historical equivalent is where the brown line meets the green line. So not much green there now, but it's going to shoot away. Now, the one thing you've got to remember with that black line is it only gets updated every 7 days. And it's not due for an update until maybe the middle of this week. So that update has, the black line has not taken account of the rain event you have just had. So when the next update's going, you're going to see a dramatic movement in that black line because plants will have moved further through their dormancy, so they're ready to break and get into strong growth, but also that extra moisture is now going to show up. So always remember, the black line is 7 days. It's only done every 7 days. The next slide, please. Now, if you remember, a feature that was put in maybe 12 months ago is that we have 2 buttons when we want to look at this pasture forecast. One is the climatology button, which is the forecast on your left, and the one on the right is the Access S button. So the climatology is using to generate those forecast lines. The history stays the same in both. To generate the forecast lines in climatology, we use the last 30 years of climate data at the 5 kilometre square grid that we use for your property. So 1922. The Access S on the right-hand side is forecast data from the Access program from BOM, and we get 33 runs of potential weather for the next 4 months, and we use those 33 forecast runs to generate the lines. I just want you to look at the 2 lines. Do you see much difference? Yes, there's some slight difference between the two, but there is not enough difference there to say that the access or the forecast is giving us any extra information that we don't get from climatology. And this is what I'm seeing on all sites in Tassie, and it's the same I'm seeing in New South Wales. So I don't know whether you've been getting it down here, but there's been a lot of publicity in New South Wales about BOM's very strong forecast for a super El Nino later this year. I've found it very funny that the BOM's come out in such a dominant manner, because this is the worst time of year for any forecasting. All forecasting has error bars around it, and forecasting in autumn, long-term climate trends is the time of the year when the error bars are the largest. So for them to come out and make that statement, I found funny. But the thing they use to make that forecast is Access S, which we're now being able to utilise. So what this is saying here is over the next 4 months through to the end of July, there's nothing coming out of their model which is giving us any indication that things could be abnormal. So it's certainly an area we want to watch with Access in the springtime. But my view now is that with the moisture you've all had, I think your autumn and winter is pretty well locked in. Now, what spring's going to be like, that's something we'll assess again in another 2 months. But where you're sitting now, I think you're pretty comfortable. And with the levels of soil moisture you've got, even at the Kelvin site, if you get a 3 or 4 rainfall event now, it's of benefit. Until you have that rainfall event this week, a 3 or 4 mil rainfall event wasn't going to be much use to you, but it is now. And they'll all add up and they'll all provide benefit. They'll keep that topsoil moist and active and growing. And the better the plants grow, they'll push roots down and start accessing some of that moisture that's deeper down in the profile that we saw at the Kelvin site. So to be honest, I was a bit negative in your position last week. I'm positive now in what I'm seeing.
Sorry, Phil, could I just butt in there to your point with the Kelvin data, where we were last year at Kelvin, soil moisture got to a fairly similar level at one point, but it was all due to one large rainfall event. As where we are now, it's been a number of rainfall events, and the way the water behaves in that soil has filled it up a lot, has made it a lot more available to the plant. As you said, same amount of water, but over a number of rainfall events has such a greater benefit to pasture than that one big dump that they had last year. It was really interesting on that graph that you showed before that highlighted that really nicely. That was a really good point.
Next slide, please, Tim. Rightio, we're now on Grindstone Bay. As Marek said, you can. It's not quite as strong on the pasture, on the probe side, but we can definitely see the 30 and 40 centimetre levels are at a lower percentage than above and below. So we've got that same characteristic occurring. Again, the arrows next to it, 18% up on last year, 42%. It's all heading in the right direction. And if we go over to the forecast one, we'll see here, and it's interesting that the black line is kicked off earlier at Grindstone Bay, and that'll be a function of moisture and pasture species. But the black line is kicked off, and then it's heading in the right direction. And remember, that black line has not, as of yet, hasn't had last weekend's rainfall event. So I expect that black line just to keep heading about the same slope as the green line the next time we see it. So that's a positive. That you're looking at the black line and you're looking at which path which of the coloured lines it's following, and looking at the slope. And the slope already before the rain was very similar to the slope of the green line. And the rain you've had is just going to keep it on the slope of the green line. So it's heading up at a rapid rate. So you could almost say, well, I can go and ignore the 10 and 25% lines because I'm on a totally different trajectory for those. That's the great advantage of this black tracking line. The forecasts are there at the start of the month. All the lines are there, but the black tracking line during the month gives us an idea of which ones can we pay attention to, which ones can we ignore.
just something on that, Phil, too, is at Kelvin I found really quite distinct to the other sites too. A little bit. It had such a strong subsoil clay level. It was between chalk and cheese. As soon as you went down past that 10 centimetres at Kelvin, and it was just solid clay. So I can understand from the probe how that's really distinct compared to grindstone, which was not as strong. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to remember that the clays will hold on to water a bit harder, so that's maybe why we've had grindstone kick off in Kelvin and hasn't, because the plants have just struggled a bit more for the water was there. We had to get a higher water content for those plants at Kelvin and to say, rightio, I've got water, I'm now going to kick off. So this whole breaking of dormancy for plants is a very, very complicated process. Even the germination of annuals is a complicated process. And that's why we've had difficulty over the years nailing it, but hopefully we'll get closer. Again, but I look at that from Grindstone Bay now, and I think it's just a very positive situation. Next one, please, Tim. We can move. That's just the Grindstone Bay comparing this year to last year. We'll move on. At Grindstone Bay, we've got the probe information. Just remember, I've just picked a few different slides that we often don't look at. So this is what the model, the available water model in the model is saying, plant available water. And the red dot, so this is a 3-day figure, and this would be again before the rainfall event. The red dot is where the model says you are currently, and the box plot is where you've been over the last 30 years. So the box has 15 years of data. There's 7 years of data, 8 years of data below, and 8 years of data above. So the line in the middle is the 50%. There's 15 years when the soil moisture for these 3 days would have been lower. So you're sitting, the model's saying that you're sitting between 50 and 75%. So there is a line up between where the model is sitting and where the probe is. Next one, please. Again, I just went a bit further down in the more pasture button. This time I just pulled up the female condition score. So I certainly know we've had a discussion about the numbers on the left-hand side. So I forget the numbers. Again, what I'm looking here is what's happening to the lines compared to the shading. So that's the shadings, the historical, the lines are the forecast. Now, we've already said from the pasture one that we could ignore the red line because the black line's tracking well above that. So it's saying to us straight away that condition of stock's not going to be an issue during our planning period. Next one, please. Rightio, we're up to Milton, Henry. Well, we're seeing obviously that there's a lot more green on that site, which is fantastic. Again, you're seeing where your moisture's sitting compared to those 3 various time periods. We have the same situation about the graph on the right-hand side, and I'm sure if I was at your place today, I'd be seeing green in the paddock, which that black line's not saying, but that's a dormancy. To me, a dormancy issue, and it's going to break very quickly, and it tends to balance itself out over time. If you've already grown some green grass, you've used up some moisture in the model. If we haven't grown grass, we've still got some moisture in the soil. So once they break, after about a month down the track, the two end up balancing them. So, but to me, what I look there is even the forecast as it sits there. How does the forecast lines compare to the historical values? You know, the yellow line is well above where the historical 50% is. The brown line is above its historical. So the brown 25% line, its equivalent is where the red hits the brown. All the forecast lines are sitting above their equivalent historical values. And now remember, this was done before this rain's come in. The rain you've had is only going to improve. It's just going to mean you're more likely to follow those yellow lines than the brown and the red line have dropped out of the equation. So you can look forward with more confidence than you could have maybe 10 days ago. Next one, please. We're just up to Gala. Slightly different situation there because of the native base. So this site's has more ability for summer growth, and it's had it's had good and even rainfall events. So again, we can see there that site's nearly full. We only go down to 40 centimetres, so we've had enough rain to get it up. The forecast, compare the forecast lines to the historical points. They're travelling very well. The black line's on the up. There is not much difference in the slope between the blue and the red line. So the fact that the black line's sort of tracking over the red, it doesn't matter because the red's tracking in a bloody good position anyhow. So it's all fine. And again, I'd expect the black line to even kick up a bit higher after the rain event. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying I'm feeling comfortable about the next 4 months. Next one, please, Tim. And the last one we sort of doomed to the Bruny site we put on the east coast, and Bruny again. It's had overall the amount of rain Bruny's had is North Bruny is not that much different to a lot of you. In fact, for a number of you, it's lower, but it's just got the rain event. It's had nice distribution of that rain, so it's been going for longer. And if you look at the current growth rate up on the top left, we've got growth rates of 33 kilos a day. So it's powering away, and with the recent rains, you say it's tracking on the red line, but that black line's going to behave more like the yellow line than the red line. So again, you look at that and say, well, I'm pretty comfortable what's happening. So as a summary for the East Coast, because I think that's the last slide, is the last week's made a huge difference, and I think it's moved you to a position of confidence about what's going to happen, and it also means that small rainfall events are all positive for you now. So and quite frankly, what's happened here is most likely mirrors what's happened back on the southern tablelands in New South Wales, except our rainfall event most likely came 10 days earlier than you did. So at the start of April, we were looking pretty, everyone was starting to get nervous. And now everyone's relaxed, and every little rainfall event now just adds to it. So that's the situation you're in. And I'm really pleased I can sit here with a positive tone in my voice rather than a negative one, which it might have been last week. And any questions, Tim?
Yeah, so Melissa and Henry, have you got any questions? Any queries, even just about how you're reading the information, anything about the tool or the outlook?
I think it's great. No, I think that looks really good. That gives us a lot of confidence going through to the end of winter. No, I think it's really beneficial.
Oh, you've cut out there, Henry.
Cut out there, Henry.
Frozen on us.
Try without your camera. That might help. If you no, it's completely frozen.
I'll go. Anyway, Thank you. No, I think that all makes sense. I've made lots of notes for the others, and we'll go through and have a look. And I was having a look at the sites live on the Farming Forecaster while we're talking. There's heaps of other things in there too that are good. It's really interesting, and I think having a more complete map of the state will be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Just one question I've got is to Melissa and Henry. Is that summary on the right-hand side of that graph, do you find that really useful to have that summary of of the text there.
You're on mute again. Oh.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think that's really good.
Yeah. Because some people don't like graphs and stuff like that. Sometimes they want a description of how it's going. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. It's one thing that it's about looking at it and making sure you go in and look. I think as to the information's there, you sort of forget, which is why this is important and a bit disappointing. We haven't got too many people, but I don't know what time of the day or the time is good. But anyway, Henry's back. I'll just go on mute while he talks.
We're back. Yeah, no, it's great. I think we were saying, sorry about that. We just went missing for a bit, but anyway, we're back. No, this is great. I miss having this catch up makes a big difference too to help understand it. It really does. Yeah, it's fantastic. I've got one question actually. I had Larissa Smith from the Country Hour rang, and she wants to have a chat later on this morning. So I was going to about the Farming Forecaster. So I was going to talk the Farming Forecaster up. Is there anything in particular you want me to say? Apart from how brilliant it is.
I mean, to be, thank you. She actually caught me by surprise because this is what people do in the media. They call you a minute before you're running an event. So I was running an event in the Coal Valley, and she called me literally as we were about to start. So I mentioned your names, but I said, she said she knew you all, so happy to talk to you. I really think it's just about your perspective. I think really what your perspective is, what value you see in the tool, what you might use it for. Just your experience is really what I think she's after. She's going to chat to me, I think, next week, so I can fill in any other details about the broader project, or so yeah.
No, Henry, you just say what you think's the appropriate thing. That's the most important. Just one other comment: if you go onto the live site at present and you hit the drop-down box, you'll see a lot of the new sites have come up in the drop-down box. But when you click on them, there's no data. So Square V have done their work and got the sites all established. We're just waiting on Cyro to get those farming systems on the computer and producing. So by the aim is for the 1st of May, that whole list of Tasmanian sites should have the pasture forecast on the right-hand side. So that's why you've got a lot more sites there, but are saying nothing. And just out of interest, Peter Reynolds was with us in the Coal Valley yesterday, but I didn't put up his Buckland site, but the forecast at Bucklands is looking very impressive. I think he's already up to 260 or 280 mils of rain for the year. So his site's looking, his site was positive before this rain event, so it's even more positive since. So that's the situation in that part. And I think Melissa's comment is important, and Henry's as well. You just got to start looking at those things in a bit more detail. Sometimes people just gloss over it. Once we start going through the month, really just looking at how that black line is behaving, because that gives you clues during the month. And then at the start of the next month, we get a new forecast and off we go. And in summary, I've said it, but I think I'm pretty positive. But come the forecast on the 1st of June, I'm going to be looking pretty strongly at what it's saying about early spring and whether we're starting to see a difference between climatology and access. Because if the Bureau's comments about El Nino are right, by June we should start seeing some of those trends coming through. So I'm totally comfortable now, but come the late winter, if things are starting to give us some warning it might be going the wrong way, I'm starting to think in my mind about, all right, what might I need to do that is different to start taking account of that. So that's a summary of how I would be using this program over the next couple of months.
Just a quick question. For people who don't know where all these places are, like on the list, sometimes, like, I mean, I kind of know where most of them are, but I'm not sure where some of them are. Is there a map?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a blue button that says View Network. It'll be on the left-hand side, either up the top or at the bottom. If you click on View Network, you get the map. And if you put your cursor over each of those ones, it will tell you what the name of the site is.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You can actually click on those as well, and you can actually go into that site from that button.
So the very first slide, the first couple of slides I put up was just a screenshot of the View Network.
Oh, okay. Yep, perfect. Right, I'm with you now.
Yep.
Just hang on just 1 second. I'm going back.
I've just got to go. I'll see you at 11 o'clock. I've got to go.
Okay, Pete.
Yeah.
See you then.
All right.
Cheers.
Okay. See you.
Thank
know
you.
that.
Tim, I have to go too, so I'll just, and I'll catch you a bit later on as well.
We'll see you then.
Okay.
Lovely to meet you, Melissa and Henry. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Is there any way you could write, instead of View Network, because that wasn't that obvious, View Network to see all the sites or something, just so to see a map of the site or something, just add a bit to that so that it's a bit more obvious?
We can certainly mention that to the committee. Yeah, we're having a meeting next week, and just say,
Tim, if you take that on board for your meeting.
I will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because View Network, I didn't really get that, or view all sites on a map or something. It could be a bit clearer. Yeah.
No, fair call.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And I had one other question for you both, Melissa and Henry. Obviously, we were encouraging more people to get involved in the webinars. I realise there's been a few suggestions about different times, so we chose this time, but other times have been suggested, like in the evening. I think because of the short notice of this one, it was just easier to do what we did. But if we're going to do another, say, one for winter, like in June as a webinar, it might be good to get a general consensus from all of you about what time. And then if it's like at 6 or 7 p.m, then that's fine. We can organise that for the next one. So I don't know whether you want to have a chat amongst the group and say what would be a beneficial time for everybody, considering everybody's got families and other things going on.
Tim, you have recorded this?
It looks like it's recording, so I hope it's recording. Yeah,
and I think the important thing with these is that the link is sent out to producers so they can look at it.
We did that. Absolutely, we did this last time, but it would be nice if we had all the hosts and a few others sort of asking questions as well, because we want to make sure that everyone's happy with what they're viewing and that they're looking at all the different aspects of it.
Yep. It's hard. It's really hard. Every time it doesn't suit someone.
I know.
Either lunchtime or early evening is probably best for us, but whatever.
Okay.
It was just today was a bad day. So
well, we'll give more notice for next time, because it was because it was really you sort of sparked me on, Melissa, when you called me when it was a bit drier a few weeks ago. But we'll lock in something a bit more in advance so that everyone's got a bit more time to know it's on. Yep.
No, it was good that Melissa forced the rain to come. Works all the time.
Oh, she's going to go.
See you later.
All right, unless anybody's got any other questions. Henry, you have any last questions before we wrap up?
No, I'm more than happy. Yeah, I'll have a chat to a few people about times. I think the evenings with us with a young family doesn't suit, but most people don't have young families around here that are farmers, so it probably suits most of them more. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think there's any more questions. That's been great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks very
really
much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, it's really. I think it's a great thing. Helps you predict going forward. Like off this autumn break, we're thinking about suddenly getting a few more sheep in to chew the feed down, sort of thing. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't have been thinking that. But seeing the models gives you confidence that you're going to have feed there for to the end of winter, sort of thing. So it's
that's great. Yeah.
Henry, if I was in your shoes and I looked at that model, I'd be doing exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the things about this model is that when that opportunity comes along to grab it and turn that grass into dollars, that's what ends up having a big impact on the business.
Yeah, that's very true. So that opportunity is not there all the time, is it? No, that's right.
No, when it comes, you've got to grab it. And
yeah,
you might be a bit quicker in grabbing it than other people, so therefore your purchase price has some opportunities. I certainly know in New South Wales at present there's some real opportunities with purchase prices. We've picked up stock most likely 25% cheaper than what we would have picked up this time last year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a big thing. That's for sure.
Well, thanks for your time, mate. All the best.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks.
All right, see you guys. See you soon. Bye.
Cheers.